Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, Sunnyvale. Welcome to autumn. The days are definitely getting shorter and the nights a little bit cooler. I'm Sunnyvale Mayor Larry Klein. Thank you for joining me again this week for my weekly office hours. It's really good because these these virtual weekly office hours are really beneficial for me and for residents. This is the 80th installment of that. And it's been 557 days since the March 16th, 2020 county health order started the shelter in place in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. And so a year and a half ago, I converted my weekly coffee shop office hours at Being Seen on Murphy Avenue into a weekly live stream address and haven't missed a week since. People say they enjoy hearing from their mayor each week, whether or not they watch that live or a little delayed. But these weekly sessions are good for me too because they allow me to reflect on what's happened in the last few weeks. But they also allow me to provide you some updates, some news, answer some of your questions, and pass on some general words of encouragement. It hasn't been easy, and it's really been a difficult year and a half. But I think I hear from a lot of people that these sessions have actually helped out. And I finally went back to in person. So I follow up the live stream address with an in-person event. So you can email me if you want to reserve 15 minutes or 30 minutes at Being Seen, or just drop by for 5 minutes or so if you have a quick question. Last Friday was my 5-year anniversary of holding my first coffee shop office hours, and I haven't held them every Friday for the last 5 years, but almost every Friday. If I have a conflicting meeting or if I'm out of town because of a conference or vacation, then definitely haven't been there. But pretty much every week you can see me on Murphy Avenue, and I think that's really great to get to know people, get to know the businesses, see all the regulars. So it's actually been good from that standpoint. So thank you for allowing me to continue to represent you and work for Sunnyvale as much as I can. I hope everyone's doing well and wearing your mask again, getting your vaccine. A few months ago, I started changing out my background art with to focus on Sunnyvale artists as opposed to having the same art that my wife and I had actually purchased in Cuba several years ago. Now I'm showing off Sunnyvale artists. So today's piece is called Spring and Summer, and it's a piece of art done by Angela Sue. So if you want to purchase that piece, please reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with that artist. Have been actually very happy to promote our art and the artists that we have in our community. So let's go ahead and get started on what's happened at the federal, state, county, and city level over the last 2 weeks. 2 Sundays ago, there was an Evelyn Avenue infrastructure bike ride. And so Mountain View Councilmember Pat Showalter, past Councilmember, Mountain View Councilmember Lenny Siegel, and about 50 people joined for a ride from the Stevens Creek Trail entrance on Evelyn to downtown Sunnyvale and then back down to downtown Mountain View. And I think it was really good to look at all the things that our two cities are doing to improve that corridor. One of course is to extend the Stevens Creek Trail, and that's from Dale Heatherstone onto Remington and then Remington onto Fremont Avenue, which we talked about a little bit. Doing an under what Mountain View is doing from their downtown, from their Caltrain station, is creating a bike track from there to the Stevens Creek Trail entrance on Evelyn. And then we're both of our cities are working on a Bernardo undercrossing at Bernardo and Evelyn, going under the Caltrain tracks and Central Expressway and coming up on the far side. So that's for peds and bicycles. And then, of course, the Evelyn Trail concept, which we talked about before, which was, funded by the last state budget, and that ultimately provides a separated bike and ped lane or bike and ped trail next to the Caltrain tracks along the north side of Evelyn from downtown Sunnyvale to downtown Mountain View, at least to the Bernardo border. And one part of the infrastructure ride is to do the appropriate advocacy to hopefully get Mountain View to kind of continue that trail into their city. So we'll see how that goes. But it was a great event to be out there on the bike and getting to know exactly on the ground how those changes will ultimately be. So it was good from that standpoint. Last Monday was a personal milestone. It marked 5 years since I was sworn into council. So, I was elected in a special election in August of 2016, and then sworn in on September 13th, 2016. So it's been a good and strange journey, to say the least. Have been very happy to pull the community together, especially during the issues of COVID, and basically raising the voice of Sunnyvale and the county. I think the county supervisors listen to Sunnyvale as well as a lot of the smaller cities, and that was one of the things I'm very proud of being able to do over the last year and a half. It's not just San Jose and the county. It's the county is listening to San Jose and Sunnyvale and all the other cities that are part of the county that pre-COVID probably didn't get as much focus. So happy that things have improved from that standpoint. But it was good to reach that milestone last Monday and do a little celebration at home for reaching an important milestone in my life. Happy to give back to my community, and that's why I got involved with city government so many years ago. Last Tuesday, of course, was election day. It was the recall ballots were due, and multiple ballot boxes around the county, multiple open polling places. I'm sure everybody knows by this time that the Governor Newsom did survive the recall and won rather decisively with 60+% of the vote. And that's been good because not only he's for what the governor's done, but making sure that he continues some of the important things that we have implemented during COVID. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. Of course, the state legislators were announced that they will start working to reform that recall process. I definitely think that spending $270 million on a special election wasn't the best expense of the state's budget, but of course that was our recall process that was in place. So hopefully we'll see that changing, either raising the bar and how the voting goes at the end of the day. Last Tuesday night, Sunnyvale Council met, and there was a study session, and we discussed multiple things, one of which was short-term rental ordinance and looking at better ways to enforce that. A lot of this was after the shooting that happened at a party at one of the Airbnb rentals, and ultimately that site wasn't listed with the city, and the city has done some things as far as putting a list of all the short-term rentals that have at least signed with the city, and this is part of the issue. The one good thing about Airbnb is they'll communicate to those owners and making sure that they're trying to be in compliance with what the city rules are, and then they also immediately take the TOT funds, the transportation occupancy tax funds for short-term rentals, and give it to the city. So that has been positive from that standpoint. The other things that we did that night was council approved the Lawrence Station plan, the EIR. So it was a supplemental EIR, and it included a lot of things, but the biggest thing that it did was increase the Lawrence Station plan by about 3,600 housing units. So it's now about 5,700 housing units at Lawrence Station, and that doesn't include, of course, all the housing that Santa Clara has built right across the street from Costco, as well as south of the train tracks. But it was actually good from that standpoint. It looked at improving bike and pedestrian flow through that area, creating a sense of place So incentives to, put parcels together and work with Santa Clara on, changes to conceivably Kiefer Road, and what can ultimately be done there to make it safer for everyone, but also looking at what makes sense. As Caltrain electrifies, I think that will be a fantastic location at the end of the day. And we later that evening, council also approved the new Intuitive Surgical Campus, and that's a headquarters manufacturing building, which is part of that Lawrence Station plan, which also includes a pedestrian bridge actually going across Kiefer. So it's actually a very interesting design for a manufacturing facility. And Intuitive Surgical is one of our biggest employers. It's actually good from that standpoint because it also provides sales tax because they sell their medical equipment, and that always helps the city provide services. So it's actually good from that standpoint. And Intuitive Surgical has been a very good partner. They're looking at doing recycled water, and that project exceeds all the REACH codes from a building standpoint. Last Thursday, Governor Newsom signed AB 361, and that allows for remote meetings. And so, council already gave direction that we'll, continue hybrid meetings, so allowing both residents and city staff to be remote, but without signing that new legislation into practice. Conceivably, all 7 council members would have to have been in those council chambers starting October 1st, as well as all of our boards and commissions. This allows us to postpone that a little bit. I think it's important, with Delta still very active in our community and affecting, the other thing is giving some flexibility to our boards and commissions. I think continuing to remain remote for a while longer is just better for everyone. So I think that's been good, and we'll hold off a little bit more until things start improving just a bit more. But happy to see the governor sign that legislation. Last Friday was the grand opening for the Flats Sunnyvale. So that's the new location for City Line, and so this is Cirrus Regis. So City Line downtown is a mixture of Hunter Storm, which is doing all the retail locations, Cirrus Regis, which is a housing developer, and then of course J.P. Morgan is the financial arm. But Cirrus Regis opened additional 70 units along Iowa, and it's actually very good because architecturally they kind of switched the building to face outwards, so that there's facing south, so you get all that southern exposure, but it's actually really nice inside. They created a big patio area, and I think doing and the important thing is, of course, they also had 12.5% affordable units as part of that project. So it looked really good, and took a tour of some of those rooms, and those apartments are very, very nice, and with especially the view of the mountains, the Santa Cruz Mountains, not that far away. So actually looked really good from that standpoint. On Saturday, Friends of the Sunnyvale Library had their book sale. So this is slowly getting back into the monthly or bi-monthly book sales at the library, and so it's very, very active. Lots of people out. So happy to see that. On Sunday, Slice of New York. So Slice of New York is the pizza place at Bevmo Plaza on El Camino. They had a little bit of an anniversary milestone. So it was their 15-year anniversary for their San Jose store on Stevens Creek. But it was also, in January, they actually had a 10-year anniversary for their Sunnyvale store. So it was good to go celebrate with the owners, with the staff, and it's actually really an interesting store because those stores are employee collaboratives. So it's actually good from that standpoint, but lots of discounts, lots of giveaways. It was good to talk to a lot of residents that are there that came by and to celebrate, have some discounted pizza. It was actually a good day from that standpoint to be able to celebrate some of the milestones in our community. On Wednesday, so moving to this week, Washington Park Swim Center finally opened. So I've been hearing from a lot of people, when is it going to open? So it did open this week. We finally finished all the issues with the county as far as kind of final punch out items for the contractors, for the construction team. We brought the lifeguards on site, did their training on the new location, and finally opened. So seeing the zero entry pool, lap swim is open. Swim lessons, water fitness, all that's is actually started up at the pool now. So hopefully people will get a chance to enjoy that. It is open year round. It's heated, so it isn't going to close down in the wintertime like the old pool did. So hopefully people will get out and enjoy it, and looking forward especially to next summer, when I think it'll get a lot of use. On Wednesday, on a little bit more somber note, there was a funeral for Pat Castillo, and we closed last Tuesday's meeting in her memory. She passed away recently, and she was a really important woman for Sunnyvale. She's an amazing woman from that standpoint, and her reach went far beyond our borders. But she was a council member. She was a commissioner, she was a council member, and of course a former mayor. So she's extremely active in our community, helped with the Chamber of Commerce, the Historical Society, and getting that museum completed, worked on Sunnyvale Youth Sports, United Way, with multiple other organizations within the city. But she was just a force of nature, both politically and socially. She fought for women's rights. She was really ahead of her time environmentally and regarding land use. So a lot of the policies that we have in place, she was very instrumental in helping getting those done, and making sure that the city is sent in the right direction. So it was sad to see her go, but she was an amazing person, amazing friend, and she'll definitely be missed, and was really an important part of Sunnyvale from that standpoint. So let's see, and then of course yesterday, Governor Newsom was at Sequoia National Park, and he signed a $15 billion climate package for California. It's the largest investment in the state's history as far as that's concerned, regarding climate. And in the recent months we've been hit with record-breaking heat, devastating drought, and of course wildfire season. We've burnt so I think we've burnt over 2.3 million acres just this year. And so this is the largest portion of this package was $5.2 billion going towards funding emergency drought relief projects, expanding the state's water supplies to deal with the historic drought that we've been under. It's approving approximately $1.5 billion towards preventing wildfire risk in forests, and clearing brush, dead trees that could ignite, of course. There's a $3.7 billion to deal with climate change risk by investing in mitigating extreme heat with urban greening projects, and dealing with sea level rise, and then $3.9 billion for zero energy school and transit buses, $1.1 billion going towards reducing emissions from agricultural equipment and livestock. So lots of things to deal with the environment, but of course we're looking at our water supply, looking at preventing fires are kind of the critical things as far as that's concerned. And then last night there was also a virtual meeting to learn about the changes to how the city is going to be reviewing housing projects, and it's mainly multi-family housing projects and mixed-use housing projects. So it's the city's basically looking at how to deal with how it reviews it to make sure that we have basically objective standards, and that's one of the things that is critical with some of the new state laws, that there's no kind of personal judgment. So it's making sure that those standards are very clear, very critical from an operational standpoint of Sunnyvale. We have a very smooth process to a certain degree, and have a lot of guidelines in place, from parking standards to single family home guidelines. But it's making sure that as the state kind of takes away some of our ability to monitor and manage that, we need, in order to, as they streamline that, we need to make sure our objective standards are very clear as far as that's concerned, and making sure that we get basically a diverse, a very clear architecture that's very nice, but also supports kind of diverse, high quality housing in Sunnyvale, making sure that setbacks are meaningful, making sure that design standards meet what the requirements are, and as far as that's process, we need to make sure that process goes as quickly as possible. But part of that is setting expectations for developers as early as possible. So, there's some new state laws, SB 35, SB 330, that kind of limit our response to things. But we need to, update some of our existing design priorities, clarify those objective versus subjective design standards, and figuring out how to make our standards as good as possible so that future projects only look good and look better. So, I think that's it. That's the first step. There was the first meeting last night that will be online if people want to give feedback. They're going to start meeting with stakeholders, and then there will be another meeting later when they have some draft design guidelines ready to go for more public input. So that's the first step of a longer process. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly COVID numbers. So COVID cases continue to stabilize from a national standpoint. We increased another 1 million, so we're about at 42.5 million COVID cases. We've had almost 212 million vaccinated with at least one dose nationally. That's about 76% of adults, and 66% of adults are fully vaccinated. So we're seeing those numbers continue to increase. We've had 680,000 deaths. That's up another 14,000 just in the last week. So deaths are actually been increasing. But actually, it's about the same as last week. 14,000 is the same as last week. And then from a California standpoint, we've had 4.4 million positive cases. We're about 8,200 cases a day now, which is still one of the lowest rates in the nation. But Delta continues to spread. From a California standpoint, we've had 68,000 fatalities, so that continues to increase also. It's about 700 or 800 a week. But on a positive note, we've had 48 million, almost 49 million vaccines administered, about 600,000 just in the last week. And then we're back at number 9 on states with adults with at least one dose at 84.9%, almost 85% have at least one dose. And then we're at 15, number 15 with states with residents that are fully vaccinated with 69.8%, so almost 70%. So 70% from a state standpoint, adults 70% fully vaccinated, and almost 85% of adults with at least one dose. And from the county standpoint, we're doing even better. Looking at vaccination rates, we've and this is 12 and older, so a much larger percentage. 88.3% of the county has at least one dose, 88.3% are have at least one dose, and 83.5% of those 12 and older are fully vaccinated. And things are looking good. We still continue to have more COVID cases. We had about 1,300 in the last week, but and 140,000 overall. But those numbers continue to drop. It was 2,000 a week ago, week to week, and now it's 1,300. We still have some deaths. We've had about 20 deaths in the last week, so we're at 1,776 deaths from a county standpoint. But we're one of the best counties in the whole U.S. So from that standpoint, I'm very proud that people are doing their part, and I continue to do as much advocating for our city as much as I can, on our city's behalf. At the county level, I have discussions with our county supervisors and county health. If you need to get tested, you can go to secfreetest.org, and lots of locations around the county to get tested. And as far as getting the vaccine, the county has lots of drop-in vaccination clinics. You can go to secfreevax.org to find out all those locations. The county, after talking to them, will have a pop-up location, El Dorado Mobile Home Community, that'll be happening on Saturday, October 23rd. So that's right around the corner, or about a month away now. But they have, on a weekly basis, they have pop-up clinics around the county, and so you can take a look and find out those locations. Let me go ahead and give you some updates on some upcoming events. Lots of things happening in the upcoming month. Our next council meeting is this coming Tuesday, and we review the proposal for parking along Sunnyvale Avenue, and proposal to basically remove parking on part of that area, and basically on one side of the street, and make bike lanes along both sides of the street, from Maud Avenue to Hendy. So this is kind of this was approved generally as part of our active transportation plan last year, and now it's looking at the actual design. I attended the Bicycle Pedestrian Advocacy Commission about a week and a half ago, and I was really impressed with staff's research into how many open spaces there are from a parking standpoint, how many cars are being used. It was actually good from that standpoint. But so we'll review that, and council's been getting lots of emails on both sides of that issue. One of the other things we'll be looking at is doing some general plan amendments. So what this is looking at conceivably changing the zoning for certain areas in the city. And owners, property owners can constantly do that, and evaluate whether or not they want to change the zoning in an area. So there's two different amendments that we'll be looking at. One of which is an applied materials research campus along Arquez, and so applied materials is looking at doing an R&D campus, and kind of conglomerating several different pieces of land into a much larger campus. And so that's one of the things that's there near, let's say, DeGuine or Commercial. And then the other thing that they're looking at, that we'll be looking at, is doing housing along Wolf Road, on the old, or on the Wendy site that's there. So kind of the property right there, just south of Fremont Avenue. So that's two things that council will take under consideration on Tuesday night. And then, let's see, on Thursday, September 30th, so the end of next week, there will be a redistricting commission meeting, and this is looking at map training and map making. So if you want to get involved with the whole redistricting process, this is a great opportunity to kind of take a look through and go through how to play with the numbers from a population standpoint, and where the boundaries are within the city. So this is kind of a part of this process that we've been going through, looking at the best way to get resident feedback and have residents do some of the designs as far as setting the borders for our new 6 districts. And then let's see, coming up October 1st, from a national standpoint, is a possible government shutdown, unless the debt ceiling is raised. And so these battles happen every few years, and it's as both sides of the aisle kind of jockey and negotiate for specific items that to get approved when that debt ceiling is raised. So we'll see how that goes, but let's see. We constantly face these battles from a federal government standpoint. Ultimately, they end up raising the debt ceiling, but it's always with a certain amount of changes to some degree, and what gets done from additional changes from a federal standpoint and other things. A week from tomorrow, so October 2nd and 3rd, is the Sunnyvale Art and Wine Festival. And, thanks to the Chamber for putting on kind of the normality, bringing things back to normal from a city standpoint. It's a little bit smaller than what it used to be from a city standpoint. Ultimately, it will be back on mainly Washington Avenue, Francis, Sunnyvale. There won't be as much music. It'll be basically one big band each day, Saturday and Sunday. But then there will be DJs playing music throughout the day. There'll be mainly more art and wine focused. And then as far as food is concerned, it's mainly focused on connecting to the restaurants that are downtown on Murphy Avenue and on Washington Avenue and other on Francis and such. So trying to get people to utilize the local restaurants as much as possible. And then later in the month, just a quick update, and we'll get more information later. October 30th, there will be a Diwali event at the Sunnyvale Community Center. And so, Diwali is the Festival of Lights, which kind of coincides with several harvest and New Year celebrations, but it's basically a festival of new beginnings and triumph of the light over darkness. But happy to see a group get together to have that celebration at the community center. October 31st is planned to be the Halloween Pet Parade. So we didn't have it last year. It was virtual last year, but should be back in person at the end of October, and always good to celebrate Halloween. And I'm already seeing Halloween decorations out on our morning runs. And then in November, the ice skating rink will be back in Sunnyvale, and that will be at the Macy's parking lot right next to Washington. So that's upcoming, and looking forward to that as far as that's concerned. Let's go ahead and get to our weekly questions. Bernadette asked, we've lived in Sunnyvale for over 25 years. I would like to bring to your attention the rodent problems in our city. We've never had problems in the past 25 years, but we've seen rats running along our fence in the daytime and out on our walks. So Sunnyvale Animal Control does not provide any home services related to rodents. You can contact the Santa Clara County Vector Service. So Vector Control from Santa Clara County, you can report your concerns. They really handle issues related to rodents, and you can request actually a free home inspection, and then talk to them about additional advice on what can be done to prevent rodents on your property. And that's one of the issues. Is it your property? Is it other properties that they're living in and then coming to your property? And definitely there was an uptick during COVID, as there wasn't as much garbage, and so food wasn't as available, and so rodents actually were a lot more widespread and going into people's houses and homes trying to find food. But if you want to contact County Vector Control, you can do that online, or you can call 408-918-4770, and they will give you additional assistance. So the county's good as far as that's concerned. And then you can always contact a pest control company. They can assist you with trapping and euthanizing any rodents that they found on your property. But and also good about inspecting and securing areas. We had that because we saw so many rats in our area. That's one of the things that we did with our house just about a year ago, last fall, is making sure that all the holes to get underneath the garage or any possible place where rats might be living. It was better from that standpoint to make sure that they can't get access. Another question Sean asked, today I learned that Tapped and Nomburger are both closing due to increased rent and landlord issues. As one of my favorite places in downtown Sunnyvale, and a local one-of-a-kind business owned and operated by a female minority, this is doubly sad. I know the mayor and council cannot meddle in private business matters, but I'm eager to know what Sunnyvale is doing to prevent small business closures that make our city special. Yeah, I heard, recently that Tapped is closing, that Nomburger is closing. So next Sunday, October 3rd, is their last day, and it's a mixture of rent and staffing issues. I love their outdoor patio area, and it was a very a frequent attendee to have some beer out on their patio, and very sorry to see that they're not part of our community. And definitely it's not been easy under COVID, and sorry to hear landlords increasing rents, which is not easy. Sunnyvale's been doing a lot for its small businesses, and I do think that small businesses are a critical to the vibrancy of a community. That's one of the reasons why I started the whole Eat Sunnyvale project, to kind of highlight of the different restaurants that we have in our community. But Sunnyvale during COVID, we had our Sunnyvale Cares Grant program. We distributed almost $3 million in city and donated funds to small businesses to cover payroll, rent, inventory, personal protective equipment. But we've also partnered with the chamber, the Small Business Association, Google, other big companies to hold seminars. So we held a seminar to help small businesses renegotiate past rent, so working with them so that they can negotiate with their landlords. That would the landlords like them to go out of business because they couldn't pay, or is it better to renegotiate the terms of how that rent was done? There was just a session yesterday. The Google, the city worked with Google to sponsor, how businesses can improve their online presence. So, we're trying to do whatever we can to make sure small businesses succeed in our city. So, but yeah, I was very, very sad to see Tapped and Nomburger will no longer be part of our community. Susan asked, any updates on our Target store reopening? So they have submitted their building permits, and staff is currently reviewing those. They have started construction inside, so they have all the ceiling and fire, the fire protective equipment removed, and so they're starting on that work, and hopefully that will move quickly. And plans are, with luck, they said it wouldn't open until next year. We're hoping that it'll open by Thanksgiving, if not sooner. So, keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully that work will go quickly. Hugo asks, why do Sunnyvale City projects take so long? Washington Pool, viaduct on Matilda near Home Depot. Yeah, government does move slowly. It's because, we need to go through a process of getting public input, putting the whole bid process. All this takes time. We normally get community input, then we get funding. If we don't have it already, we get the final design, and then we build for that construction. And that bid process sometimes slows things down. The swim center took about a year and a half from when we broke ground. The Fair Oaks Bridge started about the end of last year, and will be open by the end of this year. But all that and especially when it's multi-jurisdictional, like negotiating with Caltrain, things take even longer. But I too would like things to go faster, but there is a process, and that process, even though conservative, sometimes is better from what the final product is. Leslie asked, are there any plans to keep downtown pedestrian only after the pandemic? And so council directed, closure of Murphy Avenue as a pedestrian only zone until the end of the year. That'll come up again, I think in November or December, to look at extending that. We're looking at conceivably a study issue workshop, or adding a study issue during our study issue workshop next year, to looking at the long-term closure. So please keep telling your businesses how much you like the street being closed. And of course, you can always email council@sunnyvale.ca.gov, or the city manager at citymgr@sunnyvale.ca.gov. I think that's one of the best things you can do to basically make sure that you get appropriate appropriate feedback on things that you like from that standpoint. Let's go ahead and wrap up. It's just about getting close to 10 o'clock. But thank you for joining me again this week. I'm always proud of our city, and especially your response during the pandemic over the last year and a half. It's really, brought joy to my heart. You helped others, you pulled together. The future continues to be uncertain. New issues do come up almost every day, but your actions really do make a difference. So get your vaccination if you haven't. Wear your mask when you're indoors. Continue to help rebuild your community, however you can. Sunnyvale will emerge from this as a stronger community. We're in this together. We'll get through this together. Thanks for listening. Take care and have a great week. Goodbye.